Welcome to Viking Recreation in East Bridgewater, Massachusetts, where we have returned for the final round of the Pro Series Eliminator format. If you missed the semifinal, we've got actually three guys who moved on to the final, those being Ed Woodside, Jim Ayotte, and there's a strike by Ed Woodside. Ed is joined by Jim Ayotte and Brian Feist in this match. It's kind of an unusual three-way final because in the elimination format, in every round of match play, the top half of the field and ties move on to the next round. And in the semifinal, there was actually a tie for second between Eddie and Jim. So they both moved on to the final, along with Brian, who had the high score. So that's why we've got three guys competing in this final match. That ball went in the gutter. That's going to be a 9 in the second box. Ed Woodside has 28 after 2. Third box. He stays right on the head pin, but he has a split 3, 5, 7, and 10. It's going to be very difficult. He does have a piece of wood in front of the 5 pin that might help him. But he doesn't catch the 3 pin. He just takes out the 5, 7. So he'll be trying to convert this for a 10 box. And he does that. Ed, as I'm sure you know, is a standout out of Central Park Lanes in East Boston. He is, I think he bowls leadoff with their team in the Friday Night Pro League. And he's also a regular on the tournament circuit. Has been for a long time. And he works out that spread eagle for a 10 box. Continues to stay right on the head pin. 48 through the 4th. In the 5th box he finally misses. That's the announcer's curse. He finally misses the head pin. Leaves the notorious Caleri 1, 3, 6, 8, 10. He does have a plank in front of the 8 pin that might make it interesting. And it does. That's exactly what happened. We will look at this in slow motion, and you can see that the ball hits the left side of the head pin and then carries through and uses that plank to take out the 8 pin, while the head pin wipes out the 3, 6, 10. So that's a nice spare for Ed Woodside, and he's got 58 plus a ball through 5. That'll bring up Jim Ayotte on the right lane and Brian Feist on the left lane. Jim was a little bit disgusted at the end of when he finished up his semifinal. I don't think he, at that point, that he had any feeling that he'd be making the final, because he, and there's a nice shot by Brian Feist for the spare. Jim missed a couple of pins on the last ball, and I think he was, he felt that probably was going to make it tough for him to hang on. But as it turned out, it was a low-scoring semifinal match, as you see the replay of that nice conversion by Brian Feist. So Jim Ayotte ended up tied with Ed Woodside at 113, and they both move on with Brian to this final. Brian Feist with a 4 fill on the spare, missing the head pin, so he's got a very difficult leave. 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. But he makes it. Great shot by Brian Feist to make his second consecutive spare. Jim Ayotte with a 9 drop, and we will take a look in slow motion at this spare by Brian Feist. Head pin goes to the sidewall, goes right in between the 6, 10, and spins around and takes them both out. So that's 2 spares in a row to begin for Brian Feist. Jim Ayotte right on the head pin, a little too much of it, leaving a split. Brian with a 6 drop. He has the diamond, or the bucket if you prefer. Piece of wood that might be tricky though, because it's in between the 3 and 5, but it's a little bit far out. Well, he didn't hit the 3 pin, so we won't really know whether what it would have done in terms of making the spare. But there it was. It went right around the 5-pin, so it was kind of guarding that 5-pin. So anyway, it'll be a 9 box for Brian. He's got 39 through 3. Jim Ayotte with 26. And Ed Woodside had 38 at that point. So Jim Ayotte will be trying to get something going here. He's got a tough lead, 1, 2, and 10. Brian Feist with a 7 drop, and he's got the triangle over there, 6, 9, and 10. Much easier leave. Nice shot by Jim Ayotte to get his first mark of the match. And again, the head pin goes to the sidewall and takes out the 10. Nice shot. And Brian Feist matches it with his third spare in 4 boxes. He's got 49 plus a ball through the 4th. Jim Ayotte with a nice first ball, dropping 8. He's got the 4 and 8 with a plank. Should make it easy to convert for another spare. Brian Feist with a 6 drop. Jim covers that spare easily enough. Brian Feist hits the object pin, but that's all he gets. He's still got the 4, 5, and 7 left, so he'll be open in the 5th. And that's a 9, so close match here. As we had in the semis, it's a close match. It's pretty much anyone's game here in the final. It's almost essentially tied. Brian Feist with 64, Jim Ayotte 54 with a ball, and Ed Woodside 58 with a ball. So he has a chance to take the lead with the fill ball that he's going to throw when he comes up in just a moment. Eddie's still on the left lane, lane 9, here at Viking. In this elimination format, it's technically not head-to-head match play, so you stay on the same lane for both halves of the match. Even if it's 2 guys, you know, a 2-man final as it normally is, they still stay on the same lane because it's technically not head-to-head match play. In any case, Ed Woodside with a 5 drop, giving him 63. Ed Woodside with a 9 drop in the 7th. He's got the 7 pin and a piece of wood well out front. Ooh, and he takes it down. That was really tricky. In slow motion, you will see that the ball goes off that piece of wood and goes well up in the air. It hits probably about halfway up on that 7 pin, just clips it enough to topple it over into the pit. So that's a spare in the 7th. Ed Woodside with a 7 drop. Nice 1-2 pocket hit, but he doesn't carry that 7, so he's got 6, 7, and 9 with a piece of wood that I'm not sure how he's going to be able to use. Well, it looked like he was trying to catch the right end of it and have the ball cover the 6, 9 and the pin take out the 7, but he may have gotten just a little bit too much of that wood. Needed to be a little bit more right out on the end. In any case, that's a 10 in the 8th. And in the 9th, another nice pocket hit. But again, he doesn't have much to show for it. He's got the 5, 8, 9, 10. Difficult leave. Very tough. And you can see what he was trying to do. Wanted to cut that 5 over into the 9, 10. But he's still got 3 pins to work on. And that'll be an 8 box in the 9th. That gives Ed 107 through 9. And he'll really want to be, he'll want to put a mark on the board in the 10th. And he absolutely stuffs the ball in the 1-3 pocket, but has an 8-10 And maybe if he gets way over, right on the 10 pin, he might be able to cover this. And he didn't quite do it. He got pretty high on that wood, but not far enough over to kick it over into the 8 pin. So he'll be open in the 10th. And that'll be a 9 box for Ed Woodside. So taking a look at the score, Ed finishes with a 116. And as you can see, Jim Ayotte 54 with a ball working and Brian Feist with 64. So either one of them is going to need a mark to catch Ed, but it's not going to take a big half. Either one of them can do it with just a kind of a rather ordinary half. But as we saw in the semifinals, that's not an automatic thing. It's kind of somewhat stingy scoring conditions here at Viking, so you really have to stay on the head pin. And as you saw in the semis, it's not easy to just summon up a mark automatically when you need one. Jim Ayotte with a 7 drop. That gives him a 61 half. And he makes the spare in the 6th. Covers that triangle, just barely full enough on the 3 pin to catch that 6 pin. So that's 2 spares in a row, and he'll have 71 with a ball working through 6. Brian Feist with a 7 box, so that gives him 71 exactly through 71 through 6. So he will trail Jim Ayotte by whatever Jim puts on the fill, and that's going to be 8. Jim has 79, so he leads Ed Woodside by 7 and Brian Feist by 8. Meaning that with 4 10 boxes, Jim would clear Ed Woodside by 3 pins with a 119 game. But of course, he still has to worry about what Brian's going to do. And Brian is a very explosive bowler when he gets going. It doesn't take him long to put a big score on the board. So this is definitely going to go down to the wire, just as the semifinal did. That's a 10 box in the 7th. Jim Ayotte with 89, Brian Feist 80. Light hit there, just missing the head pin is Jim Ayotte. Drops 4. Brian Feist smashes the 1-2 pocket. He gets everything but the 6 pin. And nice shot by Jim Ayotte to convert that 4 drop in the 8th box. Really clutch spare there, as Brian doesn't take an advantage of the 9 drop. Ends up with a 9 box there. Here's another peek at the 4 drop conversion by Jim. Light hit on the head pin, catches a little bit of a break there as the head pin comes off the sidewall and takes down the 2, 4, and 7. But that's still a terrific shot and right on time there in the 8th box. He will fill it with 6. Interesting leave there. 3, 5, 7, and 9. Piece of wood at an angle in front of the 3. Question is, can he cover all of those pins with that plank? And he kind of went high. I think in order to try and cover that 9, he had to go kind of high. But at the same time, he wasn't able to cover the 7. And, well, it turned out the 9 didn't go either. So it's an open box. It's a 9, as it turns out. And also a 9 for Brian. So Jim Ayotte has pretty much covered what he needs to do to pass Ed Woodside with 114. And he leads Brian Feist by 16. So that means that Brian needs to throw a double here in the 10th to recover from a 16-pin deficit. And he's right on the head pin, but he doesn't throw a strike. So that means that Jim Ayotte is going to be the winner of this Pro Series Elimination tournament. He will be open in the 10th, but it doesn't matter. He's got enough to win. And Jim will finish with a 9 box and a 123 game. And we'll go to the scoreboard in just a moment. Brian Feist finishes with a 106, and Jim accepts the congratulations from his fellow competitors, and You can take a look at the scores. Jim Ayotte 123, Ed Woodside 116, Brian Feist 106, and that's going to wrap it up. Jim Ayotte is the winner of this Pro Series Elimination Tournament at Viking Recreation in East Bridgewater, Massachusetts. We will see you next month.